The lawyer's voice was matter-of-fact, professional, like he was reading a grocery list instead of destroying my world. Your father's estate, valued at approximately $1.2 million, has been left entirely to your brother, Michael Sullivan. You've been excluded from the will. I sat there in that leather chair, in that mahogany office, staring at this man in his expensive suit, and I couldn't breathe. That's not possible. My father wouldn't. I'm sorry, Miss Sullivan. The will is very clear. Your brother is the sole beneficiary. My brother. My older brother by 3 years. The golden child. The favorite. The one who could do no wrong. The one who just stole my entire inheritance. And sitting across from me in that same office, Michael didn't even have the decency to look guilty. He looked satisfied. Dad made his choice, Em, he said, using my childhood nickname like we were still friends. Maybe if you'd been around more in his final years. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. I was there every single day for 6 months while he was dying. Where were you? On your boat? Playing golf? Closing another real estate deal? The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should... No. I looked directly at Michael. I want to hear him say it. Did you manipulate Dad? Did you change his will while he was on morphine? Michael smiled. Actually smiled. I didn't have to manipulate anyone. I'm just the better son. Always have been. I walked out of that office, got in my car, and sat in the parking garage for 20 minutes, shaking. Not crying, not yet, just shaking. Because I knew the truth. And I was going to prove it. And when I did, Michael was going to lose everything. Let me give you the backstory, because you need to understand who Michael really is. We grew up in Westchester County, New York, upper middle class. Dad was a successful commercial contractor. Mom was a teacher. Normal suburban childhood mostly. Except Michael was always the favorite. Straight A's came easy to him. Sports came easy. Making friends, getting girls, charming adults, all of it was effortless for Michael. He was the kid who got standing ovations at school plays while I was painting sets backstage. I was fine with it, mostly. I had my own life, got into a good college, became a social worker, married a great guy named Tom, had 2 kids, built a quiet, meaningful life helping foster children. Michael became a real estate developer, made millions, married a former model named Brittany who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, had a mansion, a boat, luxury cars. Everything he touched turned to gold. Or at least that's what it looked like. Mom died when I was 32, cancer. It was brutal. Michael showed up for the funeral, stayed 2 days, then flew back to his life. I stayed with Dad for 3 weeks, helping him figure out how to live alone. Thank you, Emma, Dad said the day I left. You're my rock. You know that, right? I know, Dad. I love you. For the next 8 years, I called Dad twice a week, visited once a month, brought the kids, made sure he wasn't lonely. Michael would pop in maybe 3 times a year, always with expensive gifts and big stories about his latest business triumph. Dad lit up every time Michael walked in. Every single time. Then Dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. 6 months, maybe a year if he was lucky. I rearranged my entire life, took family leave from work, moved into Dad's house with Tom's support, took Dad to every chemo appointment, held his hand through the pain, cleaned him up when he got sick, read to him when he couldn't sleep. Michael visited twice in those 6 months, once for 3 days, once for a weekend. But every time he was there, he'd closet himself in Dad's study for hours, just helping Dad organize his finances, he'd say. You know, complicated business stuff. Don't worry about it. I should have worried about it, because apparently during those private conversations, Michael convinced our dying father to change his will, to leave everything, the house, the savings, the life insurance, all of it, to him. Emma's married. She's stable. She doesn't need it. But I'm taking care of major investments. This money could grow. I could triple it. And I'll take care of her, I promise. Dad believed him. Sick, medicated, exhausted dad believed his golden boy son. And I got nothing. The funeral was 2 weeks after that lawyer meeting. Friends and family filled the church, everyone talking about what a great man Dad was, how much he'd be missed. Michael gave the eulogy, talking about Dad's legacy and values and integrity. I sat in the front row, watching my brother lie through his teeth, and I felt something inside me crystallize into pure, cold determination. After the service, at the reception, Michael's wife Brittany pulled me aside. "I just want you to know," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "that Michael told me he plans to help you out. Give you a little something from the inheritance. He's so generous." "How much?" I asked, flat. "Well, I think he mentioned maybe 50,000, which is really kind considering Dad's wishes." Dad's wishes? Right, because a man who told me I was his rock suddenly decided I deserved nothing? Brittany's smile tightened. "I'm just trying to help smooth things over. Tell Michael he can keep his pity money. I don't want anything from him." I walked away before she could respond. Tom found me in the parking lot. "You okay?" "No, I am. But I will be. I need you to trust me on something. Anything. I'm going to fix this, and it's not going to be pretty. But I need you to have my back." Tom looked at me for a long moment. We'd been married 12 years. He knew when I was serious. Always. "What do you need?" The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a probate attorney who specialized in contesting wills. Her name was Susan Chen, 58, sharp as a knife, expensive as hell. "Tell me everything," she said at our first meeting. I laid it out. Dad's illness, Michael's private conversations, the sudden will change just 3 months before Dad died, my years of caregiving versus Michael's sporadic visits. "Do you have proof your father was not of sound mind when he changed the will?" "He was on heavy medication. I have his medical records." "That's a start. What about evidence of undue influence?" "I have my own documentation of every visit, every doctor's appointment, every time I was there versus when Michael was. I have emails from that period where Dad seemed confused, about Michael saying things that don't make sense, about feeling pressured. And I pulled out my phone and opened a recording app. I recorded some of our conversations in his final months, with his permission. I wanted to preserve his voice for my kids." Susan leaned forward. "And?" "In 3 of those recordings, Dad mentions being confused about his finances, about Michael saying things that don't make sense, about feeling pressured." Susan smiled. Not a friendly smile, a shark smile. "We can work with this." Contesting a will takes time. Months, sometimes years. But I had something else in mind, something faster. Because while I was researching probate law, I stumbled across something interesting about my brother's business. Michael's real estate development company, Sullivan Properties, had borrowed heavily to finance his latest project, a luxury condo development downtown. $50 million project, his biggest yet. The financing was complicated. Multiple investors, bridge loans, a complex web of debt that would pay off huge if the project succeeded. But it required Michael to maintain certain financial ratios, certain liquidity requirements. If he defaulted on any of the loans, the whole house of cards could collapse. And guess what Michael was counting on to meet those requirements? Dad's inheritance. I found this out through public records, business filings, loan documents. It's amazing what you can learn when you know where to look. Michael needed that $1.2 million to keep his business afloat. Without it, he'd be in serious trouble. So I made a decision. Susan filed the will contest 3 weeks after the funeral. The grounds? Undue influence, lack of testamentary capacity, and fraud. Michael's lawyer called it frivolous, said we had no case, threatened to countersue for legal fees. But here's what Michael didn't know. In probate cases, when a will is being contested, the estate gets frozen. No one gets any money until the case is resolved, which meant Michael couldn't access Dad's money, couldn't use it to prop up his failing business, couldn't meet his loan requirements. His lawyers filed an emergency motion to release partial funds. We fought it. The judge sided with us. Full freeze until the case was heard. Michael called me 2 weeks later. First time we'd spoken since the funeral. "Emma, what the hell are you doing? Contesting an unjust will, normal sister stuff? You're going to bankrupt me. Am I right? How unfortunate. I'm serious. I have loans due, investors breathing down my neck. I need that money. Then you shouldn't have stolen it from me." "I didn't steal anything. Dad left it to me." "Because you manipulated him while he was dying. We both know it, and I'm going to prove it." "This is insane. You're ruining my life over nothing." "Nothing? You stole my inheritance. You stole Dad's house that I grew up in. You stole the money Mom and Dad saved for 40 years, and you're calling it nothing?" "I would have given you money. I said 50 grand. Fuck your 50 grand, Michael. You don't get to steal everything and then throw me scraps like I should be grateful." I hung up. Tom looked at me with wide eyes. "I've never heard you talk like that." "Yeah, well, I've never had my brother destroy my family before." Over the next 3 months, things accelerated. Michael's condo project started having problems. Contractors weren't getting paid on time. Permits were delayed. 2 investors pulled out. Word spread in the real estate community that Sullivan Properties was having cash flow issues. I may have helped that word spread. Anonymous tips to a few business reporters. Nothing libelous, just factual observations about public loan documents and delayed payments. Michael's perfect reputation started cracking. Meanwhile, Susan was building our case. We had Dad's medical records showing heavy medication. We had testimony from his oncologist about cognitive decline. We had those recordings where Dad sounded confused. We also had something else. 3 of Dad's friends willing to testify that Michael had pressured them to convince Dad to change his will. "He asked us to tell your father that Emma was set for life and didn't need the inheritance. Said it would be better for the family if everything went to him because he could invest it properly," one of them told Susan. Undue influence, clear as day. Michael's lawyer tried to settle, offered me $300,000 to drop the case. "Tell him no," I said. "This isn't about money anymore." "Emma," Susan said carefully, "300,000 is, I know what it is, but I want more than money. I want him to lose everything he values more than family. His reputation, his business, his superiority, everything." Susan studied me. "You're sure?" "Completely." The trial was scheduled for September, 6 months after Dad's death, but we never made it to trial because in August, Michael's largest investor filed a lawsuit. Sullivan Properties had defaulted on a $15 million loan. They wanted their money immediately. Michael couldn't pay. The estate was frozen. His business was hemorrhaging cash. He had to file for bankruptcy protection. His business, his reputation, everything he'd built for 20 years, gone. The mansion went into foreclosure, the boat got repossessed, the luxury cars vanished. Brittany filed for divorce. Turns out she was only interested in rich Michael, not broke Michael. And through it all, the will contest continued because I wasn't going to let him off the hook. Michael showed up at my house on a Tuesday night. Tom answered the door. It's okay, I said from behind him. "Let him in." Michael looked like he'd aged 10 years, thinner, bags under his eyes, wearing jeans and a regular button-down instead of his usual designer suits. "I need to talk to you," he said. Talk. We sat in the living room. Tom stayed close, protective. "I'm sorry," Michael said quietly. "For what specifically? For manipulating Dad, for taking the inheritance, for..." His voice cracked. "For being a selfish asshole who thought money was more important than family." I waited. "You were right. I did convince Dad to change the will. I told him you didn't need it, that I could invest it and grow it and take care of both of us. But really, I just wanted it. Wanted to prove I was the successful one, the one who deserved more. And now I've lost everything. My business, my marriage, my reputation, everything I spent 20 years building is gone. He looked up at me. And the worst part is I deserve it, all of it. I should have felt satisfied, victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. You know what Dad told me a week before he died? He told me that his biggest regret was that his kids didn't get along, that Michael was so focused on success he forgot about family, that he wished we could just love each other without competition or resentment. Michael's face crumpled. He knew. He knew what I was like, and he still left everything to me? Because he thought you'd do the right thing. He believed in you, right up until the end. That's what kills me, not the money. The fact that you had a chance to be the man Dad thought you were and you chose greed instead. Silence. What do you want from me? Michael finally asked. I want you to agree to split the estate 50-50, like it should have been in the first place, like Dad would have wanted if you hadn't manipulated him. I don't have anything left to negotiate with. You've frozen the estate, my business is bankrupt, you've already won. I don't want to win, Michael. I want justice. And maybe a chance to still have a brother someday, if you can ever actually change. We settled the will contest a week later. 50-50 split, $600,000 each. Michael's half immediately went to his creditors and bankruptcy proceedings. He was left with maybe $50,000 after everything was settled. My half went into a trust for my kids' education and our retirement, plus a donation to the hospice that cared for Dad in his final weeks. The house, Dad's house, we sold, split the proceeds, used my half to buy a smaller house outright, mortgage-free. Michael moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town, got a job as a project manager at someone else's development company. Normal salary, normal life. Brittany married a hedge fund manager 6 months later. 1 year after everything settled, Michael showed up at Thanksgiving dinner. I'd invited him, not because I'd forgiven him completely, but because he was still my brother, and because Dad would have wanted us to at least try. Thanks for inviting me, he said at the door. Don't make me regret it. But I smiled a little. The kids were wary around Uncle Michael at first. They'd heard things, picked up on adult tension, but he sat on the floor and played with their toys, asked about school, actually listened. Tom pulled me aside in the kitchen. You okay with this? I don't know, I admitted, but I'm trying for Dad. He'd be proud of you for trying. Not many people would. Yeah, well, I'm not doing it for Michael. I'm doing it for me because holding on to anger was eating me alive, and he's already lost everything else. I don't need to take his family too. It's been 3 years now since Dad died. Michael and I have a relationship. Not like before. We'll never be close like we were as kids, but we talk every few weeks. He comes to family events, shows up for my kids' birthdays. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what Michael said in my living room that day, about deserving to lose everything. Did he deserve it? I don't know. But I know this. Dad left him everything, hoping he'd be generous, hoping he'd do right by both of us. Instead, Michael chose greed, and that choice cost him his business, his marriage, his reputation, and nearly his family. I didn't take everything from Michael. He did that to himself. I just made sure he faced the consequences. The final twist came 2 years after the settlement. I got a letter in the mail from Dad's lawyer, the original one who'd read the will. Dear Emma, I've struggled with whether to send this letter for the past 2 years. Legally, I'm no longer bound by attorney-client privilege now that your father's estate is settled and I've retired. I want you to know that 3 weeks before your father died, he called me to his bedside. He was lucid. I confirmed this with his doctor. He told me that he wanted to change his will back, that he'd made a mistake, that Michael had pressured him, and he wanted everything split equally between you and your brother.
I prepared the documents, but before he could sign them, he had a severe decline, went into hospice care, and never regained the capacity to sign legal documents. Your father's last coherent words to me were, "Make sure Emma knows I wanted to fix it. Make sure she knows I loved her." I couldn't testify to this during your will contest without betraying attorney-client privilege while your father's estate was in probate. But I want you to know now, your father loved you. He knew Michael had manipulated him, and he tried to make it right. I'm sorry I couldn't say this sooner. With respect, Robert Morrison, Esq. I sat at my kitchen table holding that letter, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of anger, tears of relief. Because the worst part of everything wasn't the stolen money. It was thinking that my father, the man who called me my rock, had chosen to exclude me, had decided I wasn't worth providing for. But he hadn't. He'd tried to fix it, right up until the end. I called Michael. "We need to talk. What's wrong?" I read him the letter over the phone. Silence on the other end. Then, "Emma, I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I knew he was confused. I knew he didn't really want to exclude you, and I let it happen anyway because I was greedy and stupid and—" "I know," I said quietly. "I know you're sorry. And I know you've been trying to change. This letter doesn't change what you did, but it changes how I feel about Dad. And that matters more than you know." More silence. Then, "Thank you for telling me." "Yeah. We're okay, Michael."
Not perfect, but okay. I don't deserve that. Probably not. But Dad wanted us to be family. So that's what we're going to be. People ask me if I regret going after Michael so hard. If I feel bad about causing his business to collapse, his marriage to end, his life to fall apart. The honest answer? No. Michael made choices. He manipulated our dying father. He stole my inheritance. He dismissed my years of caregiving as worthless. He tried to buy me off with scraps of what should have been mine. Everything that happened to him was a direct result of his own greed and arrogance. I didn't destroy him. I just refused to let him win. And yeah, I froze the estate knowing it would hurt his business. Did I feel a little satisfaction watching it all collapse? Sure, I'm human. But I also gave him a chance to make it right, to split everything fairly, to be the brother and son he should have been. He's taken that chance, slowly, imperfectly, but he's trying. And that's more than I expected 2 years ago when I walked out of that lawyer's office with nothing but rage and determination. Dad's letter gave me closure, knowing he tried to fix things, knowing he didn't actually choose Michael over me. But even without that letter, I'd still have been okay. Because I learned something important through all of this. Your worth isn't determined by what someone leaves you in a will. It's not measured in money or houses or inheritance. It's measured in who you are when someone tries to take everything from you. And I chose to fight. Not for revenge, though that was part of it, but for justice, for dignity, for the principle that you can't just steal from people and expect them to smile and accept it. Michael lost everything he valued: money, status, reputation. But he gained something too, even if it took years: humility, honesty, and a chance to actually be part of this family again. I don't know if that's a fair trade, but I know it's justice. And sometimes justice is the best revenge you can get. Have you ever been betrayed by a family member over money? How did you handle it? Did you fight back or walk away? Share your story in the comments. And if you're dealing with a family inheritance dispute right now,
Document everything. Get a good lawyer, and never let anyone convince you that fighting for what's right makes you the bad guy. Hit that like button if you believe in standing up for yourself, even against family. Subscribe for more stories where justice wins. This is Revenge Diaries, where sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to be a doormat. See you next time.